Okay, so now we are going to learn how templating works in Symphony, and for that we'll need to learn some XSL. So let's open Flower Shop, our Symphony installation, and let's open Workspace, Pages, and here we'll open our homepage view. So let's open it, and let's take a look at what we can find in here. So any XSL file is basically just a XML file with XSL namespace accessible within it, and you can see that it's XML simply by XML definition at the top. Now we also have these two XSL nodes, XML nodes, whatever, and this is just a boilerplate. You can forget about it once you set it up correctly. Here we are just defining some properties about our style sheet, and once you have set them up correctly, we can forget about it. So the most important part here is the template tag, template node, or whatever you want to call it. And in here, as you can see, we have h1, and we have a tag that, as you might suspect, outputs the value of this selected node. So let's remind ourselves how our XML data that was passed to the view looks. So let's go to the debugger, and here we actually see all data that was passed to our view and that we have access to within this XML, actually XSL. So as you can see, we are selecting data params page titles. So let's put this in our inspector, and yeah, at the top here you can see that I have this node selected, and here it says home, which is exactly what we are outputting over here. So I'll just zoom out, and let's take a look at what template means. So templates are basically setting the context from which we can access some variables. They're setting us upon a certain node. So for example, if I'm to type here match data, we are basically setting our position within the document directly onto the data node. And with this we can now use relative paths. So let's take a look at the difference between absolute and relative path. So first of all, every absolute path starts with a slash, like this one over here. But since we are currently on the data node, we are sitting on this data node, we do not need to use the absolute path. We can just use a relative path and remove this part over here. So basically what we are saying, okay, so I'm sitting on the data node, but now I want to output the value of the params that is within this data node page title. Okay, so this is what is happening here. So if I refresh the home page, you will see that everything still works. Now if I'm, for example, if I would, for example, put a slash over here and save it, we would get nothing. So what's basically happening here, let me just get this. What we are saying to the XSLT is that we want him to position itself to the start of the XML document. This is what this slash means, and then find the params node that's direct descendant of this of our document, and then within this param node we want to find the title node, and obviously no such node exists. So again, if I press enter, we get nothing greened out. Now we can just type data and everything should function again. So let's fix this. But there is a little trick. For example, we could tell XSL to select any page title node. So you might think that we can do this just like so, but no. To do this, we type double forward slashes, and this tells XSL to find absolutely every every node that's called page title. Currently we only have one page title, so this is not very visible, but for example, if we look at the tags node and item, then we can just type something like item, and then within every tag we get item selected. We also get, over here in the page types, we also have item node, which is completely unrelated type of node to the tags. So actually it's not, but never mind. And yeah, so this is the way we can access absolutely every node that it's called, that's of the type item. Okay, so let's try to do something useful now. Let's say that we want to create, as I've said earlier, a preview for our entry. So let's start with something like this. I will have a div, we'll call it flower preview. So that's the CSS class, and in here we will have a part where we will put the image. So let's create another div for image preview. Okay, not preview. And here we'll just put the image tag. For now we'll leave it empty, or actually maybe we'll just put something like this, 60 by 60 image, temporary title. Then we can open another div, and here we'll just say, I don't know, content of our preview, and let's output the title with h4 tag. Let's just call it flower name, and here we want to show the value. Let's say that we want to select the title, the name of this first flower with ID of 19. So let's do this right now. We are currently sitting upon the data node, so we can just say featured flowers. So let's maybe test this over here, data / featured flowers / entry, where ID is equal to 19, like so, and we want to get the name. Right, so that's correct path, and we don't need to copy the data because we are using relative paths. And let's save this. Now we also want to output the price, so let's now call span.price, and here we'll just output value of, again, the same thing, we'll just change this to price. And as you can see, it is quite verbose, but we'll fix this later, so don't worry, it's not really that hard to write this XML. Great, so the last thing we want is a list of tags. So let's create the UL, and we'll have li, we'll have a link within that will lead to something like, I don't know, flowers, tags, actually question mark tags. Okay, never mind, we'll leave this for later. We'll just output the value of the tag here, but we have many tags, so for that we would need to use something like a for loop, and exactly the right thing exists in XSL. So I'll just type for each. So this is basically the equivalent of for loop in XSL. And then, since we are in the data node at the moment, we should select these like so, and we'll say tags. But for each is actually quite similar to the template, because it changes our context from the previous one, which is data, into the tags node. So we are currently, when we are doing stuff within this for each loop, we are currently sitting on the tags node actually not for each tags, but for each tag's item. So let me just show you quickly. With this we have selected all the items, and now in the for each loop we'll go over each item. So first we'll go to the first item, then our context will be set to this item, and then we have, you know, access to this item's data, and we don't have to write all these long paths to get to it. So we can just output the value, and since we are sitting on the item, directly on the item, we can use dot to get its value. So let's go and refresh the page and see what we've got. As you can see, we have an image, we have the name of the flower, the price of the flower, and the list that was generated with the link. Okay, cool. So let's also take a look at how we would get the property of some element. So for example, this one over here, or actually maybe let's just output this ID so that we stick to the same thing. So we want our flower name to be a link to more details of that specific flower. Now let's go and create a new link, href, anchor, whatever, and we can say something like, you know, root flower list slash, and we'll pass ID of this flower. Now we cannot, you know, we want to put 19 over here because this is ID of our flower that we are currently viewing, but we cannot exactly, you know, put the put something like this in here, because this doesn't work. Whoops, again I made a mistake. Come on, just copy it. So if we try to do something like this, you can see that we get some warnings because syntax is not really great. We cannot put tags within the tag property. Everything gets mixed up. You don't know if this tag is, you know, if this property is beginning here and ending here, or somewhere over here or here. So it's kind of messy. So to put the values in the standard HTML or XML properties, we use the braces syntax. So once we open these braces, we can basically put you know, we can select any value without using this value of tag. So let's just copy this like so, and okay, let's put the name for a moment over here, and oh yeah, I want to actually wrap all of this in a link like so. So let's see what we've got now. As you can see, we now have a link here. Let's inspect this link, and we have flower list, flower 6, but this is kind of messy. We have spaces and, you know, uppercase letters. That's not good for URL. So we want to create a URL that will lead to the, you know, flower by its ID, not its name. So how do we access the ID property of our entry? Well, very simple. We can just type /@ID. So @ is basically means that, you know, we are currently on the entry, so we can type /@ID. Whoops. That means that we want the ID property of our element, and as you can see, it's selected now. So that's how we can get it. Okay, let's refresh the page. And now, as you can see, we get flower list /19. So I think we should cut this video a little bit short, and in the next video we'll see how we can organize and structure our templates a little bit better so that we don't have all this mess of long path names and variables and stuff like that.